Hey there, I'm Chris.
And I'm Kendall.
And we're Bike Gearheads.
Today we're going to talk to you guys about a long-term bike review that we were doing on the Santa Cruz Megatower.
We've had this bike in our marketing fleet for about a year now, used it for a handful of shoots and spent a lot of hours on it. This is a V2 Megatower. Give us some details about this bike spec.
The new V2 version now has 165 millimeters of rear travel. The version 1 only had 160. The fork travel is compatible with 170 or 180, and we have it set up at 170. I rode the bike in the low setting the whole time. That puts it at a 63.5 degree head tube angle, 492 mil reach, and 1298 mil wheelbase. So nice and long and slack. Loving the glove box. I think for enduro it makes a lot of sense. You don't want to have to carry around a big heavy pack. You can throw some of your supplies right in the bike, which makes it a lot easier. This bike is 29-inch wheel only. It's not mixed wheel compatible. I think that suits the bike's intended use well. Good for like rowdy terrain and even like remote backcountry terrain where it's going to be lots of up and over rock steps and things like that. It rides really well.
The V2 just showcases what a true baseline enduro bike should be these days. I think it checks a lot of boxes for people.
Yeah, it hits some modern features too that we love to see. It has the SRAM UDH compatibility, so you can run the new transmission group set on this bike if you'd like to.
As we do these longer term reviews, we like to, put some of our own personal parts on these bikes just to make sure they're compatible with what we feel like riding. Maybe it's the cockpit or some changes that we make. What have you done to this bike to kind of upgrade it or really dial it in? I know it came as an XL1 mechanical build with some alloy rims.
First thing I did was a GX Eagle axis derailleur and shifter for the electronic shifting. I've gotten really used to this in my riding, especially like multi-shift I think is a really nice feature. So opted for that stuff. Like you said, we swapped out the wheels that came with some alloy wheels and I put on the Reserve 30 HD carbon wheels. This is Reserve's like flagship enduro race wheel. They have a 30 mil internal rim width and I found the carbon on them to be on the stiffer side compared to the other carbon wheels that I've ridden, and I also found them to be like by far the most reliable rim that I've ever ridden. I've ridden some stuff from like We Are One, Industry 9, and I think these take the cake for me. Just with my riding style, they worked the best. Another thing that I really liked about these wheels was the downhill riding characteristics. They were on the stiff side, like I said, but I found with a little bit more like fine-tuning with suspension, I actually preferred that stiff feeling of the wheel. They really helped me accelerate out of corners. Like you feel like you get a good rebound, as you exit the corner. And I really just felt like this bike wanted to get up and go, and I really attribute a lot of that to the wheels. They just have a really fast accelerating feel. The bike in general just made me want to go pedal it, and I think the wheels are a big factor.
Yeah, you really notice it on this stiffer carbon platform that is this Megatower. Adding those wheels in really adds to the characteristics and it kind of makes it feel like just one unit that's designed to ride together. Good to hear they're durable, but also the weight has been, a big factor. Leave a comment below. Let us know what you think this bike weighs. It's an XL longer travel enduro bike, so I picked it up. It's pretty light. What's your guess?
I think it's like probably around 36.
36? I was going to say like 34 and a half.
We'll see.
All right, well, leave your comments below. Let us know what you think, but we will be weighing it at the end of the video.
Another thing that I threw on there, just like for my personal preference, was the 1UP 240 mil travel dropper post. This was the first time I've been able to run this post on a bike. You can see the way I have it set up now, it's basically as low into the frame as I could put it, so it still protrudes a little bit from the seat post there, but this actually is like my perfect ride height that I like to ride at. And so this was great since I was almost always pedaling this bike to get to where I wanted to go. I could have the saddle height that I really wanted and liked, and then still have it really drop down and get out of the way in a way that like only this 240 post could really do.
Benefit of having an XL frame is that you can fit that thing in there.
Another one-up part that I did was these carbon handlebars. They're the 35 mil rise model. I've been riding these for a few years now, and I'm just really settled into the way they feel.
They're awesome.
Yeah, they have that like the oval shape in the center, which they say like helps the bar flex over the stem a little bit. I don't know how well it works, but I think
it's hard to tell when you've got 170 mil of travel underneath you.
Bars feel great.
They're great. They feel really good. The sweep is just right. The rise is just right. It's a really comfortable cockpit feeling. I agree. I've ridden a lot of deity bars. I currently have a set of to package from We Are One. The 1UPs are still close to my heart. It's something where I just always have a set in the garage for whatever bike comes around.
I also added a tire insert just in the rear. I actually just did a Cushcore XC in the rear, which you might not expect to see on an enduro bike, but I find with the double down rear tire, that is the perfect balance of flat protection to weight savings. That Cushcore Pro insert is definitely more durable, gives a better ride feel, but it's about double the weight. So
let's dial in on your suspension and tire pressure settings. Where are you at with this bike? What are some learnings that you've had riding this Megatower? Obviously it's VPP. Have you found that you're running a stiffer pressure? Obviously you have an air shock in the back. What was it like dialing in that fork, the 38? I know you come from Zeb's, and then also we can get into tire pressures.
My previous 2 bikes to this one both had coil shocks. And so this air shock did take me a little bit to fine tune those settings. Tried as low as 220, and I think I tried as high as 290. I ended up settling in right at like 265 PSI in the shock. I ended up running like a faster rebound than I have in the past with shocks. I usually like to run it on the slow side.
And you have one volume spacer in there?
Yeah, I didn't mess with the volume spacers. It comes with one, and I just left it like that. Moving up to the fork was definitely more intuitive to me. Like you said, I come from Zeb's, but I found I could get the 38 to ride exactly how I wanted it fairly quickly. The PSI that I kind of settled in at was like 95. Again, with the fork, ended up running a little bit faster rebound than I was expecting. Fully open on high-speed compression. I think somewhere right in the middle with low speed. Love the way this fork gives me something to brace against in corners, and it's also just like a nice meaty feeling fork when you are holding a highline in a rock garden or something. Like I'm not worried about it twinging or twanging, like it's very predictable, and it looks pretty sweet with the matching Kashima on the shock.
What tires are you running and what pressure do you have them at?
Tire combo I've been doing for a few years now is the Maxxis Assegai in the front and the DHR2 in the rear. The rear tire has the double down casing. In the front, I actually just did EXO Plus. Didn't have any flat issues. This is the same tire I've been running all season, actually. The rubber compounds, I do Max Grip in the front and then Max Terra in the rear. I find the Max Terra lasts a little bit longer. And then the Max Grip in the front, I think, is just essential. Front tires don't wear as quickly. Pressures, like you asked about, in the rear, like I said, I am running an insert, and I started pretty high. I started at 29 just because I wasn't sure. I hadn't run this insert before. The wheels were also new to me. Wanted to just be like super careful in terms of like flat protection, rim damage, but ended up dropping all the way down to as low as like 26 for maybe like more loamy rides where it's not as rocky, maybe it's like not as steep and fast. Whereas at the bike park, I'm pretty settled in at like 28 for like gravity riding. And then in the front, I do 24 for every ride in the front. I just think it's nice to have the same feel as you're like, you initiate corners with the front wheel, obviously. And so I think it's just good to have a consistent feel up there.
That's a deep dive into the specs. Leave us a comment below and let us know what you would change on this bike. Is this your dream bike? What do you think Kenny did to kind of dial it in? I think it's a pretty sweet build. I think the only thing I would do is add on transmission GX, because that would really kind of cap this thing off.
Yeah, after shifting transmission, I totally agree with you there.
Yeah. You use this bike primarily as your do-it-all bike. Give us some details on the trail impressions. Let's start with climbing.
The climbing on this bike I find is truly exceptional for an enduro bike. I think I've ridden a lot. I had a V1 Megatower. That bike climbed well. I think this one climbs even better. I attribute this a little bit to my build. Like I said, I did consider weight with a lot of the parts. And then as well, like the air shock, I think definitely helps. This bike would be really fun with a coil, but the way I was riding it, pedaling it a lot, doing a lot of days that are like more than 2,000 feet of climbing, I think the air shock was really working well for me. This is definitely like an enduro bike that climbs well enough that it could totally be your only bike, even if you like to climb a lot. The revised VPP is definitely like notably better than it was on the version 1 Megatower. I think it handles square edge, hits, even like low speed when you're just like trying to get up and over a step. I think it handles it really well. Compared to the V1, the V2, I think shines a little bit more in technical climbing scenarios.
How about kind of on-trail characteristics for maybe traversing and then obviously descending? How's this bike feel? Is it sprightly? What's the travel feel like?
Yeah, getting into the downhill, it is really a bike that I think strikes that middle ground where it's playful enough for like high speed jump lines. Like it's super fun to ride at the bike park. I would say the playfulness is probably not like something that's suitable to like your local dirt jumps. Like it's still a big enduro bike, but riding maybe more underwhelming sections of trail where maybe you want to like goof off and do some side hits, it's totally capable of doing that. It's not necessarily the big high pivot coil shocked enduro bike feel where it's like boring to ride it on flat trails. Like this is actually still pretty fun to ride. Mm-hmm. And then when you do get into the gnarly stuff, I really think the geometry really lets the bike kind of punch above its weight. Holding high lines in like loose, rutted, dusty like park trails was pretty intuitive with this bike, and I was almost kind of shocked by it because it does climb so well. I think it just strikes a really nice balance between climbing and like enduro race feel.
Kenny, let's say you're an engineer at Santa Cruz. What would you change on this bike next round?
Like I said, I really enjoyed this bike. I don't think there's any like huge outlying things, but I will say that I felt a little bit frustrated trying to get this X2 to do what I wanted initially. I probably was messing with the settings for like 4 or 5 weeks, like just trying to make it so that I can like get through all the travel, but like have the mid-stroke support that I need. The X2, like maybe it's not the right shock for this bike. I don't know, maybe it needs to come with another token or something, but I felt like it just took longer for me to get it working than I was expecting. Another thing is I couldn't really get the glove box to stop rattling on this bike. It's not a huge thing. It's not super loud or noisy, but it is something that is a little bit of an annoyance.
Who is this bike for?
I think I'd definitely classify at least this build of the Megatower as the peddler's enduro bike. It's that long travel 29er, one bike quiver that I think a lot of people in the Rocky Mountain West are looking for. This is a bike that lets you log serious vert and enjoy your time out there while you're doing it. Even with all that said, it still strikes me as a thoroughbred enduro race bike, and I think you could totally build this bike out a little bit differently if you say you have like a shorter mid-travel bike already and you want this to be like your gravity bike that you still can go uphill with. You swap the air shock for a coil. You maybe go for like a more aggressive or heavier like wheel tire insert combination, and there's other things you could do. Bump the fork up to 180. Like you could definitely make this your downhill bike that can still go uphill kind of thing. The way that we have it built out, it's definitely like really impressive the way it can get uphill for an enduro race bike.
Nice. Well, on that note, let's toss it on the scale and see what this thing weighs, huh?
Let's do it.
3711, that's with a full glove box and XTR pedals. I'd say that'd probably come down to like 35.5 or something without those.
I definitely have the tube purse and the tool wallet in there with a tube in the glove box, so that definitely adds some weight, but it really does feel lightweight on the trail.
That is it on our long-term review of the Santa Cruz Megatower V2. Great bike, rides nice. We really like it. We spent some time in the desert, some time in the mountains, bike parks, local trails.
Definitely put a few 100 miles on it, and it's holding up great. Like, haven't really had any real mechanical issues, so I think that stands to the durability of the bike for sure.
Leave a comment below and let us know what you think of these longer-term reviews, and make sure you like and subscribe if you haven't. We really appreciate the support.
Definitely. And if you have any questions about the Megatower or any other enduro bikes that we sell, be sure to reach out to a Gearhead and we'll give you our best recommendation.
And a quick shout out to some of the apparel we got to ride while testing these bikes. Backcountry Gear apparel, Fox Racing supplied us with some helmets this year and some shoes. So big shout out to all of our supporters for this channel.
Definitely. We'll see you guys out on the trails.
Peace.